Latter-day Saints loved the family of the man who massacred their brothers and sisters. A nation that produces such acts of such love is a nation that still has life. It's a nation that still has hope. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Adam's Fall. Well, everybody knows about Charlie Kirk's recent assassination and the horrific Michigan, quote, Mormon church atrocity. I was going to address the Michigan church atrocity earlier, which was perpetrated against members of my faith and caused me great sorrow. But I wanted to give it a little more time to gather my thoughts and not try to just capitalize on the moment or react in anger, which is always a temptation on YouTube. The first event, the Charlie Kirk assassination, happened in Orem, Utah, a place I'm very familiar with and only 15 minutes away from Brigham Young University, where I attended as an undergraduate. The alleged perpetrator allegedly had a Latter-day Saint background, although clearly he had left the church both in terms of beliefs and practice before perpetrating this heinous crime. He appears to have been radicalized after dropping out of Utah State University and may have been influenced by aspects of internet culture. Allegedly, when the roommate asked why Robinson had done it, he answered, quote, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out," unquote. Did Robinson see Charlie Kirk as an existential threat for certain groups of people? In a truly Christian act, Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, has since forgiven the perpetrator. The second event, which is captured in this horrific image on the screen, was when a man driving a truck with United States of America flags drove into the front door of the church, started shooting, and lit the church on fire, killing 4 and injuring 8, and leaving a church in ruin. Allegedly, the perpetrator had strong animosity towards, quote, Mormons, and used language like, quote, Antichrist, and that Mormons were, quote, going to take over the world. Language that in my mind strikes as strongly Christian in character and also implying an existential threat. Are, quote, Mormons an existential threat to the world and Christianity? And was this act a consequence of all the Christian nationalist rhetoric that exists today? Like Erica Kirk, and subsequent to this horror, the Latter-day Saints, in a truly Christian manner, have donated hundreds of thousands to the widow and son of the killer. Both are acts of Christian forgiveness in the face of terror and religious political violence. Now I want to switch over to a picture of the pickup truck with the United States flags coming out. Can there be any more striking image? You can see that there's the truck with the flags, and above the truck is a sign welcoming people to the Church of Jesus Christ. And at the bottom it says, "Visitors welcome." And that sign, which is left hanging, is surrounded by a burnt-out church. Truly heart-wrenching. On October 5th, 2025, David French of the New York Times wrote a nice article entitled, "There's a Path Out of This Divide." David French in this article highlights these two Christian acts and how, quote, combatants in the culture war have a voracious need for political ammunition. It's important to constantly prove that, quote, they are evil and, quote, they want you dead. He continues in the article, quote, "There was even an insidious new twist in the post-shooting debate. A number of Christian fundamentalists online chose that day of grief, the same day that many Mormons learned that the president of the church, Russell Nelson, had died, to proclaim that the Mormon Church, officially known as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, wasn't truly Christian. And I might add that Russell Nelson, ironically, was not only the oldest living Latter-day Saint leader before he died, but also perhaps was the most ecumenical and winsome leader of the Latter-day Saint Church. For example, he was the first president of the church to meet formally with a pope. And one of his most frequent messages to members of the church was to exemplify Jesus and to be peacemakers. Everything about Russell Nelson was about avoiding conflict and trying to promote a more peaceful and loving world by following Jesus' example. The Mormon Church atrocity happened the day after President Nelson died at age 101. David French, not a Latter-day Saint, finishes his article by saying, "When I speak to audiences that are in despair, I like to close with one of my favorite quotes in all of literature. It comes from J.R.R. Tolkien's Return of the King, the final volume of his Lord of the Rings trilogy. Sam and Frodo are alone in Mordor, the land of Sauron. Their quest to destroy the One Ring is failing. Surrounded by evil, isolated in deep blackness, much like we see in that image of the burnout church. All hope seems to be slipping away, but then Sam looks up in the sky. There, peeping among the cloud rack above a dark tor high up in the mountains," Tolkien wrote, "Sam saw a white star twinkle for a while. The beauty of it smote his heart as he looked up out of the forsaken land, and hope returned to him. For like a shaft clear and cold, the thought pierced him that in the end the shadow was only a small and passing thing. There was light and high beauty forever beyond its reach." There is profound truth in those words. It reflects the fundamental nature of hope. It's rooted in eternal truth. As the book of John says, quote, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it," unquote. But it's also unexpected. It can arise in the most unlikely of circumstances, in the most terrible of times. America has witnessed two remarkable acts of forgiveness in the last month. Erica Kirk forgave the man who killed her husband. Latter-day Saints loved the family of the man who massacred their brothers and sisters. A nation that produces such acts of such love is a nation that still has life. It's a nation that still has hope. On Tuesday, Kelsey Piper, a staff writer at The Argument, responded to the Latter-day Saints Church's act of love with a beautiful and true statement. Quote, "If America is going to make it," Piper wrote, "it will be because people chose forgiving things they should never have had to forgive over hurting people they have every right to be angry with," unquote. This is the essence of grace. Last Sunday, the shadow came for the men, women, and children of a church in Michigan, but there is still light and high beauty. And last week, the light that flooded America came from people of faith who were determined to demonstrate the character of the Savior they love. Now, I really appreciated David French's words. They are an attempt to bring people together, to look past small differences between denominations and faiths and traditions, and to see how we can exemplify Jesus' love one for another. And this is my hope, that all Christians may look past their denominational differences, that they may come together to help to create the city on the hill, God's kingdom on earth. And I want to close by commenting on a movement that is very prominent right now. There is a little community called the Little Corner, or the TLC, that I interact in, which is primarily composed of Christians. And in this community, the topic of Christian nationalism has been front and center. Considering the history of the persecution of the Latter-day Saints, essentially from the very beginning of the church, I and many other members of the church are often quite leery of and fearful of a project like Christian nationalism. and what that might mean for the safety and freedom of members of our church. Understandably, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been an ardent supporter of the Constitution and religious freedoms from the very beginning. And considering the perpetrator of the Michigan church shootings' use of the American nationalist symbols, such as a pickup truck and American flags, combined with the anti-Christ rhetoric, we might ask some serious questions of the movement and what will be the reality of implications for people living within various traditions in the United States, especially if a government is, quote, Christian nationalist. I do personally support the promotion of Christian values, but under the banner of an established Christian nation state, that is a whole different question. One could ask if the result of Christian nationalism is the fomenting of hatred and violence against my tradition and perhaps others, then clearly I'm decidedly against the formation of such a state. These are tough questions, and no tradition is free from violence and persecution of other denominations. This includes my own. It is my desire, like David French, that we would once again come together, that we would love God and love one another as Jesus loved us. This is my prayer. Thank you for your time and attention. Please leave a comment.